Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for listening to our content, and please like and subscribe. Before we get to the podcast, if you have middle school or high school kids that play sports and you don't want to fundraise like me, we got you covered. My buddy Chris Carneal owns Booster. Chris?
We help schools and sports teams raise funds in a super fun and engaging way. In fact, the last 22 years, we've raised $750 million, and we can't wait to help you. Choose booster.com.
Welcome back to Pure Athlete. I'm Jeff Francoeur along with Brad Williams and Britt Lee, and we will get to it in a few minutes, but we're going to do a mailbag this week. A lot of interesting questions coming through, got a lot of opinions, but first off, what you guys been up to?
Man, right now, enjoying the Braves. I mean, we got, 1 week left in the season? And
yep.
It's been fun and can't wait. There's a lot of scary things happening with pitching and looking forward to the playoffs.
A lot of finger issues going on right now.
Yeah, some blisters and stuff, but it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, I found out last week I get to be on the call with Brian Anderson for TBS.
That's cool.
So it'll be fun to be able to do that. And of course, they keep winning, means I get to stay at home too, which is nice. Don't have to travel, but it's just such a fun time of the year. You got postseason, college football starting to get, to some of the good games. So I love this time of year.
So I have to ask you, when you're doing the NLCS or whatever, and you're doing the Braves, and you've got to be more unbiased.
Yeah.
People start getting after you who are Braves fans about.
I don't know. I get off social media altogether. Honestly, I was told that. But you know what I do actually? My dad had this idea, is I kind of put out like on a paper, like say it's the Braves Brewers.
Yeah.
And if I'm talking really good about the Braves, I put like a little check mark. So I kind of have, but I also tell people, look, the series kind of dictates and the game where you go. I mean, if the Brewers are up 8-0 on the Braves, I'm going to be talking more about the Brewers.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the great thing, the storylines and and if for someone that doesn't understand that I have to be different than I am during the regular season, then
Because Smoltz gets killed by Braves fans.
Yeah, of course. And it's because he's not saying they're the greatest player every time, so it's a tough thing, but it's going to be fun. I'm excited to be able to do that. And, this is getting kicked off season 2 here, man. It's great. We've had so many good guests already this year, and we're going to have tons coming up the next, 2 months too, leading up into the holidays. But, I kind of want to spend 2 or 3 minutes before we get into the first question, just reiterating what Pure Athlete is, why we do this.
Yeah, I think that's great, Jeff. We have new listeners and who come in all the time and hear these great stories from athletes and hear us talk about different topics. But at the end of the day, we want people to understand first and foremost, because we talk about a bunch of issues that sound sometimes like we're coming down on youth sports. We love youth sports.
Of course.
And the whole reason we do this is because we love sports, and we think that youth sports is one of the most powerful vehicles there is for teaching life lessons to kids and for connecting parents and kids on something that they both love. So, make no mistake, we are huge advocates of youth sports, but we also think that the sports culture today is kind of running rampantly out of control in some directions that require unbelievable amounts of commitment in terms of time, in terms of dollars, and so on and so forth. And so we just want to speak into that for parents and say, hey, there's some things that you ought to understand and know. Brad and I are on the back end. I've finished with my kids. You're more on the front end, but you lived it as a young athlete. And we just want to kind of share some thoughts and some ideas and hear from a bunch of other folks about what makes sense to do this the right way, to be healthy for your kids, but also to help them achieve their dreams and their goals.
Yeah. So Brad, we have 5 pillars. We believe in the vision, the belief. You got to have grit, character, and skill. And so kind of talk about those a little bit.
Well, I think that we kind of wanted just to put some sort of key foundational words to kind of what Pure Athlete is. And really, again, Pure Athlete really is kind of this standard that we would love our kids live up to, and they look up to role models. They look at a female or male athlete in terms of how they carry themselves, and so we're like, how do you define that? And so I think that's kind of when we sat down and said, okay, what are some key descriptives, some key words that would really, or pillars that would really describe that, and we just kind of broke it down to those five pillars, and kind of really we try to use that as a theme in our interviews. We try to use that as a theme when we're talking about answering questions in the mailbag. But it really comes back to, and Britt said it, is that we're not trying to minimize the passion, the competitiveness, the things that we love about sports. We're just trying to give some boundaries, or we're trying to give some some healthy advice and counsel to parents that are going through this. We don't ever want them to diminish the goals or dreams of their kids.
No, heck
we
no.
just want them like, hey, do it in a way that's the healthiest way
possible.
possible.
Healthy. I think that's the thing. I've said every time my teams take the field, whether it's my son, daughter, I'm like, you're trying to win this ball game.
Yeah.
You're doing everything you can to win, but there's always limitations to it and how you do it and what it looks like. So,
well, even our brand, Pure Athlete, we picked that to say we want athletes to try to, understand how they can become the best version of an athlete.
But I think pure athlete's the thing, not pro athlete.
Right.
And I think that's where these get messed up sometimes. Not every kid's going pro, not every kid at 10. So, what?
Most aren't.
No, they're not, and Jay Billis has thrown that out before, the percentage of how many kids don't even play at college in a D2, D3 school. So with that, because I know we're going to have a lot of stuff, let's get to it. So first question, I'm coaching my 7, almost 8-year-old daughter, and I'm seeing how much youth sports have changed. The focus is less on fun, development, life lessons, and more on winning at all costs. I just started listening to your podcast, and after listening to a number of others with similar themes, so far it's been great. Well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
What I'd like to hear more of, though, is how to make a change, how to help youth sports get back on track.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we've heard that from several people who've said, it's great that you guys are trying to impact youth sports, but how do you do it? And that's a tough call. How do you make an impact or influence the culture of youth sports? And we think our best opportunity to do that is to influence parents and coaches. And, it's only when parents and coaches start, saying no to this and no to that, and this is the way we're going to do it for our kids, that you start to influence the overall culture.
Well, Britt, you wrote a book because of really the journey that you felt like that you went through with your twins, especially, and you felt like all the things you did wrong and some of the things you did right, it really moved you enough to write an entire book. And so, really, like you said, it really, I think the key is the parents. And so, what would you say, going back to your book, would be the one thing that if you could do differently on that journey? What would you do?
Yeah, I love the way you said all the things you did wrong. Some of the things you did right.
Well, because,
All right, I'll rephrase that. You did some things great. You did some things not so great. But we all, I can definitely say that as well as a parent.
Brett, your book's horrible. What would you do?
In the second edition, what are you going to change?
I mean, in all seriousness, I am finished with that journey. And as I look back, I've got really good relationships with my kids, and I did some things right intentionally. I did some things right by the luck of the draw, but I certainly have some things that I wish I had do-overs on. And probably the biggest thing, and as I've gone through these 40 episodes, I mean, I'm hit all the time with, gosh, I wish I had known that.
Yeah, for sure.
10 years ago, or I wish I'd heard that 10 years ago. It would have shaped how I do things, which is, again, what we're trying to do for other parents. But the biggest thing for me is, my boys played multiple sports until high school, and then they honed in on tennis. People who've been on the podcast heard me talk about this, and they wanted to play college tennis. That was their goal. And tennis is a year-round sport. And kids, I mean, in the tennis world, like, kids will go off to academies and they'll just leave their home at 16 and go live somewhere else. And I didn't do that, but I would have given my kids more breaks, and we would have taken, hey, let's take a month off here.
Yeah.
Let's take a month off, because we dealt with injuries. We dealt with some burnout. It just was too much. And I wish I had realized that.
Yeah. I think when you talk about how do you change that, I agree. It starts with the parent. It starts with the person that's in control, telling your kids, we're not doing this. I tell you, I coach our teams and I tell them we do not play or practice on Sunday before 1:00. Yeah. We go to church as a family. We do this. It's setting boundaries. And the whole idea that I love is when I never learned a thing from winning. I know, like I'm saying, look, I want to win every game, I told you, but all the lessons I learned were from losing, from going 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts. I tell my wife that all the time as we go through this. I'm like, our kids need to fail.
Yeah.
They need to continue to fail because it's the only way they're going to learn. It's the only way they're going to learn what they need to fix, what as a team, how you fail at the beginning and all of a sudden how you become better and win. So that's my whole thing. If you go out there and you go 30-0 at 8 years old and you're beating teams by 15 runs, you're not teaching these kids a thing.
Yeah.
You're not teaching them at all. In softball, we've started to go into higher tournaments, and I told our parents we're going to lose more, but I'm telling you, our girls are going to get better. And at some point on the other side, it'll be great.
I love that. I think that's great.
I think that, I think the key as parents in responding to this question is how do we make a change? It's really, and like I said, our mission is to try to do the best we can to counsel and influence parents. And the one thing that I've seen as an athletic director, the one thing I've experienced as a parent, the key word, the key theme, I think, is awareness, is really being aware of your child in terms of what their motivations are. If they all are going to have goals, if they're all playing sports, hopefully it's their choice to play sports at whatever level. And so we look and try to be aware of, like, you got a kid who may sit there and say, look, my dream is to play in the MLB, and they're getting up every morning and they're wanting to hit off the tee. But you may have a kid, hey, I'm just playing it just for fun. Right?
Yeah,
there's a kid whose dream is, like, I just want to make my high school team, but like when I go to college, I'm going to major in something that's completely different than anything to deal with sports. But I just love to kind of have a diverse pursuits. And so where I think and I know where I made mistakes as a parent was not being aware of the things that was healthy and unhealthy in my relationship with my kid, and understanding what drove him, what discouraged him, and then really letting it be his journey. And so I think so many parents make the mistake where it's their journey and not their kid's journey, and really not listening to their kids. Like Britt talks about, giving them time to rest. Listen to your kid when they say, hey, I'm not really up to doing one more tournament. Can we just take this weekend off?
You know what? With that being said, because it leads me right into the next question.
Yeah.
Is Brad, I'm thoroughly enjoying this podcast. There are clearly some common themes that parents did to help these athletes reach the highest levels of sport. I'd really love to hear from some athletes who burned out as well. And how did their parents, how did they go wrong? And that's why I just listened to everything you said. And that's why it was like, I think that's a lot of it.
I was telling Britt last night, I can remember, and there's lots of memories of this. I can remember my son was on an 11U travel team, and we went to the beach and feeling guilty the whole time we were at the beach, and then coming back like a day early because we had to be at a tournament.
God, that's a horrible. Do not do what he did.
And so
if you got a chance to go on the beach, lay out.
But
he's,
take he was 11 years old, and yet we felt that we were letting the team down. We felt that, so the whole vacation there was a stress, and my kid couldn't just enjoy being at the beach. He was thinking about, oh gosh, I'm letting my team down. We're leaving earlier than everybody else in the family because we got to get back because we don't want to miss this next tournament. And I'm thinking that was, and we still had a good time at the beach, but it was like, why didn't I realize that he's 11 years old? And if he's 14 years old and he's 15 years old, and that may be different. But that was definitely my decision, and to say, that's the priority right now. The priority is for you not to spend time with your family.
So don't do what Brad did on
exactly.
that one.
And so but I also did the next year did realize and pull back because I did see that, man, this is going to lead to him burning out. And I always said, Brady, my son, is wired to work hard. He is wired. He loves baseball. And if he ever burned out, it was completely on me because the way he was wired, he wasn't going to burn out and he was pretty self-motivated. But I mean, gosh, I came close to burning out.
That's protecting and giving him a break. And I've said it, I told you my little guy is playing lacrosse this year, did not want to play baseball. And it's so funny because we always talk about it. Watch your kid. They'll tell you, for the most part, what direction they're feeling, if they're liking what they're playing, if they're passionate about it. Braden would come home from school and I'd be like, we got baseball practice tonight. And I'd be like, you know. I pick him up the other day. Hey, we got lacrosse practice tonight. We get home. He lays his stuff out, got his cleats laced up already, ready to roll. And I'm like, boom. Look, I'm a baseball guy. I'd love for him to play baseball. But my kid right now is telling me I'm ready to go all in on lacrosse. And that doesn't mean he's going to play it 12 months out of the year. Sure. But I'm saying in the moment, he wants to play lacrosse and he loves it. Now we're doing golf, we're doing other stuff because like you said, you're going to take time off. I don't care. And I think there's a few more questions down the road, but I don't care if you're just a one sport athlete, even at 16, even at 17, even at 18,
need time off.
You got to have time off.
And even if they don't want it.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's where it's your job as a parent to step in and say, like you said, we're going to the beach. Don't do what Brad did.
Yeah.
But, that's where you do.
Yeah. Let's dig in this a little deeper because first of all, I want to challenge the premise of this question. You guys may disagree with me, but the premise of the question is if a kid burns out, then it's the parent's fault. And that's not always true.
Yep.
Kids burn out all the time just because they're tired of something and they've done it for a long time. And something in their life changes and, hey, I have a new interest now and I don't want to do this anymore. And sometimes that's a parent's fault and oftentimes it's not. So I don't want to put it out there that, parents are always to blame.
Right.
Majority of the time.
But it is a tough thing to defend parents a little bit when your kids get older. First of all, they're not going to be passionate every day. There are going to be days they come in and say, man, I don't want to go to practice today. And you have to push them and say, no, you're part of this team.
And that's okay.
And yeah. So I just don't want to make it out like,
if it's every day,
that's
we
different.
Got issues.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's move forward. In our Chipper Jones interview, we probably got, I think he had made a comment about his kids taking off for the summer and not playing baseball. And we probably got more comments off that one.
Why is it always Chipper?
Yeah,
why is Chipper always
one
drawn?
Quote. And so there's a bunch of questions regarding kids playing year round. Obviously we always talk about playing multiple sports, but one of the questions was, hey, how can your kids stay competitive in this sports culture and not play year round? So if you want your kid to make the high school team or make whatever team, travel team, how do they do that without focusing on their sport year round?
Well, I think you still got to practice. It's like I told my son the other day, they have lacrosse practice once a week. Well, you need to go out in the backyard, throw the ball, run and scoop it, and try to work on that stuff. So I think that's the thing. It's no different than we used to go to the beach, I told you, for 10 to 14 days, but we usually take the baseball bat down there or whatever, and me and my dad would go hit twice. I'm not saying don't do anything, but give them a break from mentally from game situation, and happen to do that. Because ultimately, again, if your kid's 10, doesn't have to do this time after time after time, and he's going to be left behind. Because ultimately, how many athletes have we heard, and I've told you on this, like my brother worked his tails off in certain things, and I could have not have worked, and I still was probably going to be more talented than him in certain things. God gifted me. God gave me the ability to do this. Now, it doesn't mean he couldn't get better or I couldn't get better working at it.
Yeah.
But still at a young age, again, we're talking about majority of these when it's like 9, 10, 11, 12. Now you get to 16, 17, 18 years old. That's where parents have to realize, okay, does my kid really want to go all in?
Yeah.
Does he love it? And if they do, now, you know what? This summer we might only go to the beach for a week because we have a show. I'm great with that.
Yeah, sure.
You get to that point where it happens, but I'm talking these parents that are 10, 11, 12, like you said, oh, we're at the beach for a family vacation, we got to come home. No.
Yeah, no.
And if a coach is telling you, then get the heck off that team.
Yeah. I mean, I think like they're asking, I think, that what's the motivation behind having a kid play year round? What's the motivation? Like, do you think it, especially again before high school, because I think resets, I think in high school, or definitely resets after puberty. But if you're a parent and you're wanting your kid to constantly be working at their sport at 10 years old, 11 years old, what is the motivation behind that, Brett? What do you think? Is it the parent's goal at that point more so than the kid's goal? Because really all they're doing is they're playing Little League or they're playing travel. So like what is they're not going to make the MLB by the work they put in at 11 years old.
No. I think, I was talking to some of my family members last night about this, and we were talking about outcome versus process. And, and I do think a lot of parents are really focused on a long-term outcome of, either playing on a high school team, a varsity team, or play in college or pro. And they're neglecting that the growth happens in the process.
Yeah.
And if you do the process right, you're going to end up with the best version of athlete, but you're more importantly going to end up with the best version of kid. Mm-hmm. And so, we hear that from mental coaches all the time to kids, even in sports, focus on the process, the outcome will take care of itself. And we as parents need to do that as well. These 5 pillars are about process. It's about developing your kid the right way. The outcome's going to take care of itself if you do that.
Yeah, and I think this podcast is not about how can we help your kid go pro.
Right.
It's not. It's how can we give your kid the best chance to have fun, enjoy it, make great memories. And then, again, we say it numerous times, if they get to 16, 17, 18, and they have the ability to take that next step, now, okay, I'm all for it. That's what my dad did with me. I ended up going, I told you, all summer going into senior year, and I was in Cuba and doing that Team USA baseball. But that wasn't like I was 12 saying, I'm going to play all summer, I'm out of here. I think that can be a bit much.
All right, well, we got another question, another chipper question. I think Jeff's really going to like this a lot regarding playing multiple sports. It says, what is being said about playing multiple sports is just wrong. Elites can do this, but not if you're not elite and want to play at the next level. You don't have the luxury to do this. If you want to play multiple sports, awesome, but playing football doesn't help you hit a fastball. Playing baseball doesn't help you become an elite defender in basketball. So this person obviously disagrees with your philosophy.
Yep.
This is an aggressive question.
I would love to meet this guy and have a cold one and just talk through it. No, but
he's a listener.
In all seriousness,
he's a fan.
Exactly. He might be, and he might not be after what I'm about to say. No, in all seriousness, what I'm saying is but playing football does not help you hit a baseball. I completely disagree with that. Might not help me physically hit a baseball when I'm in the box, but my mentality and everything I learned from playing in a football field will help you in baseball. No doubt about it. In 2 seconds, I will say all the time, the toughest guys I know in baseball are the ones that played football.
Well, what did Mark DeRosa say?
Hands down.
In their last interview.
Absolutely.
Him playing in the state championship game of football helped him relax when he was in minor league baseball.
But also made him feel like he was elite and could go to that next level. And so I'm not saying skill set wise it crosses over, because no, that doesn't. Me hitting a home run has nothing with me running a fade route at the 5-yard line. It's what they do. And again, you can say the elite of the elite. Mike Trout played high school football. He was, to me, the best baseball player of the last 15 years. So I don't see where this whole idea, again, when you get to high school, if you choose to do one sport, I still would love to see guys play 2 sports or women play 2 sports. But if it's not in the cards and you want to go all in on one sport, go ahead, be my guest. I think at 12 years old, if you want your kid to just play 180 baseball games, you might be one out of the 1,000,000 that it happens to.
It's not going to end well.
It's not going to end well. It's going to end with your kid not wanting to play anymore. It's going to end, and this is the other thing, it's going to end up going to them in high school, and this is a whole nother thing you can get into. But if they're not playing sports, now what are your kids doing?
Yeah.
Serious. What are they doing? I stayed out of trouble in high school because I was doing sports all day.
Yeah.
Some of my other people that I know that were out doing things they shouldn't be doing, I was at the field. It kept me going. Now, if you're burning these kids out and you get to that level, what are your kids going to do in high school?
Yeah. Well, and that's becoming a common problem It's
Oh,
it's
you think?
so many great athletes or kids who could have been really, really good high school athletes and maybe even college athletes just aren't playing anymore
Yeah.
because they got worn out and they got burned out. Britt, let me ask you, we've talked about this. Does this apply to all sports? You know, we talked about the real skill sports like tennis or golf. Like, does it, who really are, it's not just athleticism. It is truly, you have to be able to serve a certain way. You have to be able to hit a golf ball a certain way. Can those kids also be multi-sport athletes and still be successful in those type of sports?
Yeah, I mean, this just my opinion. I think when you get to upper levels of high school, you know, maybe sophomore, but certainly junior and senior years, if you're playing golf or tennis or one of those individual skill sports, it's tough. Now, I know some examples of people who've done it, but it's rare to be able to do that. However, I do think that, you know, you could play multiple sports, you know, pretty far along. And in fact, I wish my boys had. They played through 8th grade, but when they hit 9th grade, they wanted to focus on tennis. And the whole tennis world is like, you got to focus, be in the academies, do all that kind of stuff. I wish that they had played another year or two of a different sport. And you know, the reality is, and John Isner said the same thing, he did it. You know, to play 2 or 3 months of another sport
Exactly.
wouldn't have made a difference.
I think it would be tough to say, hey, I'm going to play tennis, but I'm also going to play football.
Yeah.
That's five months
Yeah.
of going thing.
Yeah.
But like say, hey, I play tennis, like we're talking about, and I'm going to play basketball in the months of November,
Yeah.
December, January. Well, that ain't going to hurt nobody, and go
Yeah.
have fun. And quite frankly, if that little bit, because I think what John said, for a lot of those guys at that thing, or women, if they can get to know, okay, I'm going to Georgia to play tennis, or I'm going to social school, then when you get to those years of college, you're committing nothing of that, and you'll pick right up where you need to with all that work.
Yeah.
You know, that's my whole thing. I was half baseball, half football. I played with numerous guys that were all baseball. You know, when they got drafted, I'm telling you, within a year, I surpassed them because I went nothing but baseball.
Yeah.
But I didn't have to do that at 13 years. I didn't have to do that at 16, 17. I did it when I got to the minor leagues.
Yeah.
And so that's my whole thing again is what is your goal? And I go back to this question. What is your goal for your kid? If your goal for your kid at 11 years old is to play in college, have a scholarship, and go pro, then you know what, dude? You need to check yourself. Then as a parent, a mom and dad, you need to check what your full thing is. And if you disagree, then you know what? Your podcast probably ain't for us. I mean, honestly.
Well, I'll give you another example, and I'm fully disclosing here. You know, people think I'm a terrible dad, but my boys were good basketball players growing up and through middle school, and they were super aggressive, and they were two of the better players whenever they played. In 7th grade, we stopped them playing basketball because of tennis. And we said, we just can't afford. And it was they were in on this decision. It wasn't just me driving it. But in 8th grade, we said that was a huge mistake. And they went back and played basketball with all their buddies, and they had a blast. And it didn't have any impact on their tennis whatsoever. And I say that because I know their parents in the same state, and you'll regret it. Your kids need to, especially in individual sport, your kids need to play on teams and enjoy that, and not just do the grind of one sport all the time.
And I want to kind of, there's a misnomer out there that the high school coaches are forcing these kids to focus on one sport, even in high school. So we've been talking about, you know, what it's like to be, you know, what they should be definitely doing before age 12 or before high school. Most high school coaches want the best athletes to play on their team. And usually they realize, so if a kid's a football first kid, you know, the baseball coach is not going to tell that football first kid, don't come play baseball with me. He's going to want the best athletes to come play on his team, even if it means he knows football is his first sport. You know, same thing with a girl that's a volleyball player playing on the soccer team. These coaches want the best athletes on their team, so they're definitely willing to sacrifice them playing other sports.
My sister coached basketball at Westminster for 12 years, and she had more girls that would miss the first 2 weeks of the season because they were either playing soccer or volleyball in national tournaments. But then she was like, yeah, come back, play for your school team. This isn't pros we're talking about.
Yeah,
Again,
yeah.
this isn't whatever. So that's my whole thing again. It just comes back to what's the goal for your kid? And I want my kids to play as many sports as they want to until they figure out this is what I want to do or I'm passionate. But I'm also not going to let my kid at 11 years old tell me this is what they want to do and they're only going to do it. You're 11. I yelled at my daughter the other day and I told her, I'm like, you're 10. You don't get to make these decisions.
Yeah.
when you move out of the house, you pay for things and you get to make those decisions. But you're not, because we know what's best because we've been through it. We've lived it. And that's why the whole goal of what this is to give, like I said, there'll be one Bryce Harper every once in a while that might just play baseball from 10 years old on. He dominates Baseball America, goes on to do what he's doing. One.
Yeah.
Your kid's not them.
And it doesn't mean you can't have hard discussions with your kids. If your kid's telling you they have these goals and you're not seeing them put any work toward, like they're saying, hey, I want to make my high school lacrosse team.
And you're not practicing.
And you're playing video games all day long. As a parent, you should say, hey, I'm just going to be honest with you. You're not going to probably make the team because you haven't put the work in.
Get outside.
Yeah. You can still have honest, frank conversations because they need that, because they're not, hopefully don't have the wisdom you have as an adult. But for the most part, you said you have to have that perspective and awareness.
I was just going to say, I was going to finish up with the last question. And this is, Britt, since you wrote the book, I'll let you answer this first, but of all the pillars, what is the key indicator of future success for a young athlete in a sport?
Well, that's a good question. And, different people have different opinions. For me, there's two that are key to me. I'm going to go with grit and belief. To me, are the biggest things. And people can talk about skill, and yes, you have to have skill. That's obvious. But grit, and I'm going to define grit is, a lot of people define grit just as work ethic and perseverance. But there's a lady named Angela Duckworth who wrote a book called Grit. And if you haven't gotten it, it's a great read. It's not just about sports. It's about grit in life. And she defines grit as perseverance fueled by passion. And so that's why I pick grit, because passion is so critical. I mean, grit overcomes talent. There's so many studies that show that people with less talent but more grit will achieve more than the people who are more talented. But grit has to be fueled by passion, or you end up with burnout.
Yep.
For sure. So I think it's critical for us as parents to be able to evaluate, and we already talked about it a little bit, evaluate the passion that our kids have all along the journey, because it can change, and not keep pushing our kids in areas where they don't have passion. So there's so many examples of that in different sports, but if you're constantly having to push your kid, everybody has to sometimes, but if you're constantly having to push them to get out on the court, to get out on the field, get out on whatever, because they lack the passion and the passion is yours, you've got to be aware of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And make some decisions based on that.
Go ahead and then I'll.
Well, I saw an interview last night with Tom Brady, and he was talking about that he was not, if you watched him play football at 12 years old or 13 years old, you would not have said that guy's going to be the greatest quarterback of all time. So you would not have said, based on his skill, based on his lack of athleticism, like you would not project him out to even play college football. And he didn't start, I think, on his high school team until like late in his junior year.
Yeah.
But what carried him was he loved football. And he had a grit, and he had a perseverance, and he had a passion that made him work harder than anybody else. And also what you couldn't see is that he had he was probably, a prodigy when it came to vision, or, field vision, or a prodigy when it came to staying calm during crisis situations. And so if everybody, so many coaches and so many parents look and say, well, that kid's fast, or that kid can jump higher, that kid can throw a ball far, but you don't see some of those other traits. And that all comes back to what Britt said. That comes back to that grit.
Yep.
He may not even known he had those abilities, but he's kept like, I'm just going to keep coming back and playing football until they tell me not to play football. Yeah. And look what happened.
Yeah. I think about final thing here is what you talked about, the grit and passion. I think about one of our former guests, Davey Pollock. I played against him since high school. He was not the fastest. He was not the strongest. And he went to Georgia his freshman year and became a great player because his motor never stopped. If you saw how many sacks he made second times going, and the motor kept going. And eventually, kind of what Mark DeRosa said a couple weeks ago, you get to where your mindset just takes you to a whole new level. And that's what you want for all these kids. Every single kid, you want a light bulb to go off at some point. And that might take them through high school. That might take them through college. It might take them to the pros. Who knows? But that's what we want. We want that athlete that he or she gets after it. They have a lot of fun. They're great teammates and all this. And that's why we're going to continue to do these mailbags, because there are questions that, we're going to disagree, and people that are listening are going to disagree. And it's okay. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out, because everybody's passionate about youth sports, and that's why we're doing this in the first place. The whole goal of what we're trying to do and what these parents are trying to do is for what's best for the kids.
Well, and you said it yourself, is a great point. If you're watching your kid playing a game and you're around other parents, would you be more proud of someone saying, gosh, your kid is so fast? Your kid can hit a ball so hard. Or would you rather say, your kid, man, the grit that your kid shows,
absolutely,
the motor your
100%.
kid has, how hard your kid dives for loose balls.
Yep.
Your kid your kid has overcame this injury. Your kid is an amazing sportsman, or she's an amazing sportsman. And so that's what, as a parent, that you should be most proud of. And that's what Pure Athlete ultimately, I think, stands for.
So, Jeff, before you close us out here, I would just say to the parents, we love getting these comments,
for sure,
and stories. So DM us on Instagram, put comments on there. Tell us, if you disagree, or if you resoundingly agree. But give us some feedback.
Yeah.
It really helps shape what we're doing in the future. We've got some unbelievable guests in golf, in football, and in a whole plethora of sports coming
Got
on.
some soccer coming up. So it's
yes.
going to be fun. And give us examples too of things you might have done with your kids that worked or didn't work.
Yeah.
We're all trying to go the same way. So,
And before you close,
we've got. I think should I cut them off?
So my mic's still
I gotta get to lunch.
Is that we kind of focused on some of the negative questions today. And we've just had
that's fun.
Yeah, and
we're
we're probably,
about the positive.
but we have had just a lot of encouraging comments, and we thank you guys for that.
Yeah.
Y'all been amazing in terms of listening and supporting this program.
Yes, give your feedback. Have a great week, and we will see you again with more guests coming up next week. Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for checking out Pure Athlete, and subscribe to our channel on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you go to listen to our podcast.